Hello! Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Michael and Benjamin's podcast. Welcome back again to the tiny room. I am the Michael of Michael and Benjamin's podcast, and I am joined by the man who knows that when that hotline blings, that can only mean one thing. It's Benjamin.
Yeah, my Domino's is ready. Woo!
Very good. Benjamin, we've got a lot to get through today, so why don't you take us straight away into the theme music?
Theme music for the podcast. We don't actually have any theme music, but I hope someone will mix them up for us. I don't wanna name any names. Rachel, I hope it's Rachel.
Very good. Benjamin, let's do our traditional news, then reviews, then a topic.
Sure, look.
Very good.
Gold.
Benjamin,
Yeah.
Did you see the trailer for the new film, which is about the character Hellboy?
Yes! Trailer number 2. International trailer number 2, baby. Red band trailer. If you're in the States, rated R. If you're everywhere else, and over 18s only. If you're somewhere else other than those two places previously listed. Yeah, looks interesting. I was more excited for this one because Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy himself, actually tweeted that a new trailer was coming, much improved.
Yeah, a lot better.
Which shows his very strong reaction to that first shocking trailer, which I honestly do believe was suffering very heavily from Deadpool syndrome.
What's Deadpool syndrome?
At the time.
Itchy balls?
Quirky, meta-referential, slightly jarring tone of music versus visuals, unusual retro soundtrack combined with 80s aesthetic that is very popular these days, especially with Netflix stuff.
That's kind of what I meant, yeah.
Yeah. So that's, how it was working. Itchy ball stuff, the usual kind of thing. But this one...
Much better, Ben, I felt.
Much more in tone, much more in keeping with the tone of a Hellboy comic. Again, spanning multiple storylines, but I think it's going to be good, Michael. Round 2 made me hopeful.
It certainly looks a lot better, Ben. Here's what worries me, Benjamin. Go on. They have cast Mila Jovovich, who I'm quite a fan of, Ben.
From an aesthetic point of view,
a very aesthetic point of view, yes. They've cast her as an English woman. Benjamin, there are plenty of English women.
Cultural appropriation, Michael. It strikes again.
Is it cultural appropriation, or is it just... Why wouldn't they just cast an English woman? Or even a French woman who has a natural English accent, for example, like Eva Green?
Oh, that should be great.
Yeah, exactly.
It should be so intense.
Very intense.
Oh, I want to see that movie with Eva Green. You've ruined the movie for me, Michael.
I haven't, Ben. Look, if you want to see Eva Green playing that character, you can just watch Spartans 300, the second Spartans 301 Spartans.
Or Penny Dreadful.
Or Penny Dreadful, yes.
In any, really, Eva Green in any incarnation. I tell you what, if Eva Green wasn't it, there would be 100% more chance of tits. She's a big fan of topless scenes, Michael.
I have seen Mila Jovovich topless several times.
Really?
I do not now want to go into listing it, because that will make me seem like someone who's kept this list, but off the top of my head, Resident Evil, the first one.
I have never seen a Resident Evil movie.
She's topless in that, and I believe The Fifth Element.
Was that not hinted at, nudity?
I thought there was nudity in the first couple of minutes in The Fifth Element.
Was that not pressed against steamed glass of some kind?
I don't remember, Ben, but I'm just saying Mila Jovovich is not nudity averse.
Fine, but now I really want to see Eva Green as her instead of Mila Jovovich. But
Benjamin,
I do think that Mila Jovovich carries heavy nerd currency.
Our mutual friend, no, not our mutual friend, my friend and your arch nemesis, Shane.
Bloody Shane.
He has a theory on nudity in films. His theory is, if you want to see some nudity in films, just watch some porn. I'm going to have to agree with my arch nemesis on that one. This is a fair point. I don't know. Back in the day, you could tantalize and titilize away and kind of, give people a little fix of nudity here and there. We don't need that anymore. The cinematic experience has gotten a lot more PG, actually, just in general.
There's no need for scantily clad women anymore.
There's not as much titillation in the movies, I feel, as there used to be. I could be completely wrong. Maybe our listeners have an opinion then.
Yeah, if you could write in and let us know whether there's too many tits or not, that'd be great.
Yeah, because also the influence of the Chinese They're a grand bunch of lads.
Grand bunch of lads.
But they don't like titillation in their films. And if you put any titillation in your movie, it's not getting released in the world's second biggest movie market.
Yeah, apparently, what did I read there recently? Might be getting a sequel simply because it performed so well in...
The Meg?
China.
Skyscraper?
No,
Alita Battle Angel?
Alita Battle Angel, I think.
I thought Alita Battle Angel was quite good anyway. It had
set
its
to
flaws.
get an L sequel based purely on the Chinese market.
The grand bunch of lads. Ben, I can't remember what I was going to say there. Yes, I still think David Harbour's delivery is a little bit flat.
Better edited in this particular one, but yeah, I'm not sure. I think
he suffers greatly from being not Ron Perlman.
Yeah, he does suffer greatly from not being Ron Perlman. Ron
I'd like to point out that I
voice.
said he suffers greatly from being not Ron Perlman.
From not... Oh, what did I say?
Not being Ron Perlman.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, fair enough. That's probably a little bit harsh on David Harbour. But he just comes home to his mum and his mum is like,
sorry,
Ron! It's not Ron, Mum, it's David. She's just so upset.
He's much bigger, though.
He's a very big man. He's a very big man. I genuinely believe he might have that physique underneath all the red makeup. He looks better. The makeup looked better the second time around. I could hack it more. It's more expressive.
It looks a lot less like a Mikey, as we call him, Mikey Miggs.
Mikey Miggs.
It looks a lot less like a Mikey Miggs drawing than the Ron Perlman version did. Because Ron Perlman looks like he was designed by Mikey Miggs.
Yeah, that's true. I also...
Sorry, I'm saying Ron Perlman. I obviously mean Ronnie P.
Ronnie P, obviously, in keeping with podcast tradition.
Yeah.
I was looking at a couple of clips from the old Hellboy movies after I watched the trailer, and it just reminded me why I often don't like some of Guillermo del Toro's stuff.
Oh yes,
the practical effects sometimes just rub me the wrong way.
No, practical effects are great, Ben. He has eyeballs in his hands.
No, those ones are great.
He has no eyeballs on his head, Ben. They're in his hands instead.
I'm pretty excited to see where Jaguar and I can't remember the name of the character from the comics, but he's the big pig monster thing possessed by an Irish imp, Celtic blood god from pig mythology. It's gonna be good. From Irish mythology. Celtic pig god from Irish mythology. Little war god thing. It'd be good crack.
Another bit of whitewashing sidestepped in that one.
In the casting of
Ben Daimo, the were-jaguar.
Well, Ben Daimo is
Japanese American.
Japanese American.
So they've cast a Korean American,
and he's playing a Britishman by the sound of things.
I think that's just Daniel J. Kim's voice.
From that one line, it was, "Where's my violin?" And it sounded very British to me.
We'll see.
I could be wrong. We'll find out when we go see the film.
That was going to be Francis.
Pardon me?
That was going to be Francis.
Yes, and they recast him for the L anti-whitewashing, which is, not necessarily a bad thing. I don't know if someone else had to lose a job because of it, but
anyway, Ben.
Look.
No, he stepped out himself. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Michael and Benjamin's podcast. Welcome back to the tiny room. I am the Michael of Michael and Benjamin's podcast, and I am being joined today by the man who is known as the man who knows that when that hotline blings, that can only mean one thing. It's Benjamin. Say hello, Benjamin.
We've done this before.
We do it every week, Ben.
Yeah, I know, but we've...
Look, Ben, there's no time for this sort of messing. Should we just go straight into the theme music?
Theme music for the podcast. We don't actually have any theme music.
Benjamin, look, we've got a lot to get through this week, so let's get straight into the news. Then we'll do the reviews, and then we'll move on to a topic. How does that sound to you?
Sure.
Good. All right. Ben, speaking of things which are kind of hellish and torturous, have you seen the trailer for the new X-Men movie?
What?
The new X-Men movie.
I'm so confused. Okay.
The new movie Dark Phoenix.
The new movie Dark Phoenix is going to be
a lot of shite outside.
A load of shite. My God, it looks rough. Look, I've gone off Sophie Turner. Let's not beat around the bush here, Michael.
No, she's turned you off of her.
Oh God.
That's not great.
Shocking joke.
Benjamin, look, you don't have to reduce everything to a list of how attractive you find the female characters. Are there any other good or bad points about it?
She's got, again, we're making Mystique everybody's best friend.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
I'm still against that. I think Jennifer Lawrence doesn't want to play a villain. I think we should just have a big old evil Mystique.
And not only is she everyone's best friend, in each trailer, she looks less and less like a mutant and more like Jennifer Lawrence in a very non-committal makeup.
Yeah.
She's now just Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Fierce campaigner for United Ireland.
She looks like Jennifer Lawrence, but like very lightly sprayed blue. I can't speak anymore. And then with I think she has 6 scales on her forehead.
No one is splaying Jennifer Lawrence in the X-Men
that would be very bad.
Look, we've gone from... It also goes against the characterization established in the earlier ones where Mystique doesn't wear a suit.
Yeah, and
now she's wearing one of the X-Men jumpsuits.
Well, you know why that is, Ben? Much easier on the makeup for Hollywood superstar Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence.
But she's making a mint out of this series. Just commit a little bit, Jennifer.
No, it's a contractual obligation. Look, she does not give a fuck anymore.
Yeah, she's out and about. But look, it's going to be a weird one. It's going to be... It looks very shoddy. Sophie Turner, first of all, is taller than Scott Summers by a country mile by the looks of the trailer.
Yeah. I like the fact that you're referring to one of them by the actor name and the other one.
I don't know the other actor's name. I don't know the man's name.
It's the guy from Ready Player One.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it's his name now escapes me.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is.
Chad.
He looks much younger than she does as well. Sophie Turner looks...
I think he's probably older than Sophie Turner in real life. But
Maybe
Ben,
it's the visor.
Stop niggling about Sophie Turner's physical appearance.
Sorry. Yeah, she's probably move off that. No, it looks sloppy, slapped together. There's, they're messing around timeline-wise again. It looks like we're going to have a little backwards and forwards. There's a bald James McAvoy. Then there's a haired James McAvoy.
70 hippies James McAvoy.
Yeah, we're bouncing backwards and forwards again. Magneto isn't wearing any of his costume anymore. He's in a big slick black number. The helmet's black again. It was red at the end of Apocalypse.
The funny thing is they seem to be playing almost a kind of a lip service to the fact that the original story was a space opera by having it take part at least a tiny bit in the ever so slightly upper atmosphere.
Yeah, there's a little bit of night sky there occasionally. It looks like Jessica Chastain is going to be some form of...
Either Jessica Chastain or the woman you frequently confuse for Jessica Chastain. Jessica Chastain.
Yes, I made a mistake earlier while watching the trailer. The two women I actually confuse most often are Bryce Dallas Howard and Jessica Chastain.
Well, that's not entirely true, Ben. The two women you most often confuse are Brie Larson and Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Yes.
Would you like to tell the tale, Ben, or shall I tell the tale?
So
I'll tell the tale. Ben arrived at my house today with a look on his face of unrestrained glee. And I was sat in my chair preparing for the podcast, as I do. At least one of us does. And then Ben tapped me on the shoulder and he said, you've got a mixed retraction this week because it's not Brie Larson who plays Ramona Flowers in Todd Turner versus the World. It's actually Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Todd Turner versus the World.
Yeah, whatever. Whatever
Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yeah. But Ben, I knew that, of course, because Brie Larson doesn't play Ramona Flowers, does she, Ben?
No, she plays the bloody Demon's Head lead singer, ex-girlfriend of Scott Pilgrim, Todd Turner, who is some other character that Mick has made up in his own debut. Scott Turner versus the known universe.
Yeah, I've made up. People say it's derivative.
He doesn't agree with them.
Ben, people say it's derivative, like how this X-Men film is derivative of its own.
Oh, look, I think
previous
it's actually
version.
Watching the train scene there at the end of the trailer. There's a train scene where Dark Phoenix comes along and flips the L train. Mm-hmm. It's exactly from that scene where Magneto does the same thing in World War II. He's chasing down Nazis in the 60s.
Isn't it? Oh, yeah.
And he flips the train around.
Which one is that? He's getting the metal for the Sentinels.
Is it?
Is that when he flips the train?
I'm not sure. One of the X-Men movies starring James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender as Magneto and Charles, he does an L train scene.
And then there's almost certainly going to be a fight in a forest.
Almost certainly. Those are the two mainstays of any X-Men movie: a fight in a train or around a train, and a fight in a forest.
Actually.
Yeah, in the
Wolverine is on a train in the first one.
He's pinned in the first one.
That's it.
There's a fight in the train station itself.
Yeah. Oh, they love trains.
They love an L train.
Trains
Mutants and trains don't mix. Who knew? No, it looks very derivative. I have never gotten invested in. I gave up on Apocalypse. Very bad movie.
I am Apocalypse.
Yeah, very bad movie. Oscar Isaac's a good actor. Wasn't great in that. I gave up on it, so I'm not invested. I'm not invested in the new wave of Jean Grey, Scott Summers.
Jean.
Yeah, it's gonna be roughly 2 hours, 2.25 hours of Gene. Except this time we've got no Hugh Jackman to be like, Gene, because you can't have Hugh Jackman wandering around with a young one. It doesn't wash well with audiences.
No, Hugh Jackman's a gentleman.
Hugh Jackman is a gentleman. He'd never do it.
Yeah, and even if he would, he probably wouldn't spend 10 minutes of podcast commenting on her appearance.
I didn't.
You son of a bitch.
That time.
Ben,
yeah, son of a bitch.
What else is coming? That's it, really, isn't it?
News-wise, that was all we got, Michael.
We're going to go see Captain Marvel this week.
We are we? We are.
Yes, we are.
Of course we are.
Of course we are, Ben.
Of course we are. We're a pop culture podcast.
Obligations, Benjamin. We have them. Obligations, we've got them.
Oh, yeah.
Benjamin, also we're going to Dublin Comic Con this weekend.
We are indeed. I do wish you wouldn't time your little Passovers when I'm drinking water, but you seem to take great glee in that.
I do.
Almost as much glee as I do in falsely accusing you of mixing up female actresses.
Remember when you said that I thought that Brie Larson was Ramona
I
Flowers?
was so proud at home as well. I was sitting there. I actually rubbed my hands together in glee, which is something I don't do very often. I was like, oh, I got him. Oh, I got him.
No, Ben, I'm not saying, Ben, I didn't accidentally say that Brie Larson was Ramona Flowers. So if someone wants to produce a clip from last week and prove that I said
defend me.
Look, that's fine, but I didn't think that. Anyway, Ben, shut up for a second. We're going to Dublin Comic Con, Ben.
We are indeed. What
are we going to do? We're going to say hello to people?
We're going to wander around. We're going to take a look at some costumes. We're going to try and have a terrible costume ourselves, Michael, here and there.
As per tradition.
We're going to try and talk to some artists this year, I think. We're just going to get engaged. Why are you into comics? What's the deal, gang?
Yeah, so if you're going to be there, yeah, give us an old text or an Instagram or something.
Yeah, get in touch with us on Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. We'll have a few stories this week chatting about what we're doing coming up to the Comic-Con. We'll be asking for your opinion on the Instagram, so please don't be afraid to get in touch with us. We'd be delighted. If you fancy having an old interview with us about your costume, why you chose it, what tropes you happen to enjoy about that character, because I love an old trope.
Ben loves a trope.
Do get in touch with us and let us know. We'd be very interested. We're very much looking forward to it. We're having a production meeting this very afternoon. Michael.
Should be very enjoyable.
With noted nemesis of the podcast Wanker.
Yeah, well, he's not the nemesis of the podcast. He's very supportive.
I am the podcast, and the podcast is me. To go against me is to go against the podcast, Michael.
Hold on, just something a weird circle there. No, we're all right.
Oh, we're okay. Sorry, we're having a few production issues today.
Yeah, very odd technical issues.
It's in response to the hubris of my comment earlier saying, "Ash, look, we've done this before."
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Michael and Benjamin's podcast. Welcome back to the tiny room. I am the man from Michael and Benjamin's podcast who is called Michael, and I am joined today by the man who is known as the man who knows that when that hotline blings, that can only mean one thing. It's Benjamin. Say hello, Benjamin.
I can't keep doing this.
Okay, well, we do it every week.
I can't do it. I can't do this anymore.
We do it every week, Ben. It's kind of
you
thing.
Don't understand.
Ben, look, we've got a lot to get through this week, so do you want to just introduce the theme music?
Theme music for the podcast. We don't actually have any theme music.
Very good. Ben, we've got quite a lot to do this week, so shall we go straight into news, then reviews, and then we'll move on to our famous weekly topic?
Of course.
Very good. Excellent. Ben, one thing that's happened this week is that Russian Doll has been getting very good reviews.
Yes, bloody Russian Doll.
Yeah.
Nailed it. No, I'm just joking. Russian Doll is the new Netflix series with Natasha Lyonne heading it up. Leon? I think it's Natasha Lyonne.
Are you sure it wasn't Mary Elizabeth Winstead?
It could have been. I often mix that character up with just about everybody on the planet. Yeah, it's getting very good reviews, Michael. Very existential, very, very trippy. What's it about there, Michael?
Ben, I've only seen the first half of it.
I spent all day yesterday in preparation for this topic watching the whole darn thing.
Ben, I forgot. Let's be honest. I'll be honest with you, Benjamin. I just flat out forgot to do that.
You do watch a lot of television, Michael, and to make way for the new stuff, you have to clear out the old stuff, so it makes sense.
Yeah, it is a shame. Benjamin, it's a classic time loop.
An old day in the life over and 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 over again.
So Ben, without getting I think you got those notes there properly.
Oh, thank
without
God for that.
Getting into Ben the nature of the time loop aspect of it, was it a good program?
Yes. As you and your good lady friend pointed out, intensely dislikable characters.
Yeah, real assholes.
Natasha Lyonne has kind of famously played that character throughout her career. Mm-hmm. The kind of tosspot with a heart of gold here and there. This is no different, except this time she's head billing. it's an interesting concept. It's a good twist on the classic time loop things founded in other movies that we'll mention later. Yeah, we'll mention it later.
Talk about that now in a second.
I do think it innovates quite well on the format. I think it's nice to see it in TV form for a change. We often get it in movie form. It does a very good job of making an entire series out of it. 25-minute episodes, which I'm a fan of.
And how many of them?
10, I think.
Just 10?
10, 25. Tight 10.
250 minutes.
250 minutos.
That is in the region of 4 hours.
In the region of 4 hours. I did other things while watching it, but I did watch it.
Okay.
I didn't have 4 hours to give to the entire series.
I mean, that's 4 episodes of a Marvel Netflix series.
Yeah, sure, look, it's about the same.
Sometimes, Ben, watching those Marvel Netflix series feels like a bloody time loop.
You are stuck there watching the same character arc progress again and again and again. As far as this one goes, again, like I said, nice innovations, good characterization, lots of twists. On an old format.
Interesting that you say that. That it's a twist on an old format. I'm gonna come back to that now in a minute.
Fair enough.
But first, Ben, we'll go into spoilers for what's it called?
Russian Doll.
It's not really about Russian dolls, is it? Unless I've missed something.
I think, well, I can explain it now in a second if we do full spoilers.
Yeah, okay. Look, Ben, one of those waves looks like a penis.
It does. It looks very like a penis.
Sorry, go on.
It looks very like a penis. So we're doing full spoilers from the penis onwards. So full spoilers from here on out, guys. If you haven't seen Russian Doll yet, go watch it there. It's only 4 hours and come back to the podcast.
Yeah.
We'll give you a second.
Hello, ladies. No.
He's going to do it again. So it centers around Natasha Lyonne's character. And she has to relive the same day, her 36th birthday, which is a milestone in terms of her psychological state.
It's because, how old I am, Ben.
There you go. There you go. She, like Mick Leonard, is very apprehensive towards the age 36 because they fear they'll be stuck in a loop for eternity and maybe end it by repeating a suicidal thought like their mother did.
Oh,
you don't do that. I'm only kidding, Michael. But Natasha Lyonne does.
My mother's fine. Everyone's listening.
I'm afraid Natasha Lyonne's mother is not so lucky. She committed suicide at the age of 36.
Not the actress.
No. The character of Natasha Lyonne's mother, in Russian Doll.
Yeah.
She committed suicide at 36, and that was kind of seared into the mind of Natasha Lyonne's character, whose name escapes me for some bizarre reason. I don't know why, so I'm going to call her Natasha Lyonne's character.
All right.
But as we go through, she's forced to repeat the evening and the night of her 36th birthday over and over again. That is the start point of her loop. She's staring at herself in the mirror and kind of taking existential stock of her life.
Yeah.
There's no particular reason given for the time loop.
There isn't.
She quite often... the reason they come up with is she meets another character who's experiencing his worst day over and over and over and over and over again. No, it's not the homeless guy at all. There's a new character introduced in episode 3 or episode 4. And he is experiencing the same thing. He is the perfect foil for Natasha Lyonne's character because he's nice. He has a mild form of OCD. He tries to structure his life. He tries to do everything perfectly first time round, which is the opposite to her character. She's a party girl. She fucks everything up quite often. Runs around. He has been in a committed relationship for 9 years, and he has his heart broken by his would-be bride.
Oh no,
or would-be fiance.
And then he relives that.
He has to relive that night over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it's very interesting. So the two kind of find each other. But there's no romance subplot or anything like that, which I really enjoyed. They're just bound to each other in some kind of existential form. There's some timeline shenanigans. Like I said, there are some interesting twists. The first 5 episodes kind of comprise Natasha Lyonne's character trying to figure out why she's suffering the loop.
What's going on? Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, so we were given some pretty interesting explanations. Some are religious in nature. It's a form of purgatory. That's what her male foil believes. It's a form of purgatory and punishment until she goes into a long diatribe about moral relativism and things like that, and kind of convinces him that's not the case because he's not really a bad person and other people surely would deserve purgatory more than him, etc., etc., etc.
That's one of the classic time loop reasons, Ben.
One of the classic time loop. We think it's hell. Yeah. They eventually realize that's not it. There are some very interesting Hebrew-based, Torah-based loops that we have to look into.
I bet you the guy who writes Immortal Hulk would like that.
He probably would. He's a big fan of, what was it called again? Euclids and Keters and
Torahs and bloody all those lads.
All that kind of stuff. But we have a number of different things. She thinks that someone's doing it to her at one point. She thinks that she's suffering for a different reason. She thinks she's already insane. She thinks she might be insane at some point. But it's very interesting, and we see different things. Fundamentally, the reason that they have to find and help each other is because one commits suicide and the other dies with unfinished business, and they are just bound to each other, and they have to. But there's no reason given for them being chosen.
There's no physical reason. It's a meta. It's a. They have to achieve a goal. Is that what it is?
No. Well, the way that Natasha Lyonne's character, she's a programmer in the series, and one of the more interesting twists on this is she describes their deaths as a crash. She calls it a crash in the system caused by a bug. And they've both seen each other in the same spot before they die. And she pinpoints that as the origin of the bug. And they have to go and fix something that they missed doing the first time as a result of the bug. And that's what keeps crashing the system over and over again. The only thing they find that links them as people is that they die at the same time.
Okay.
Every time. So if one character dies, the other character dies almost instantly through some way. And the deaths vary from stage to stage. There's no consistency in the deaths at all. So when one character dies, the other dies. So for example, if Natasha Lyonne's character falls down a vent surreptitiously, the male character will have a brain hemorrhage or something like that to match the death at the exact same time.
Did you just say surreptitiously?
Did I say surreptitiously again? I did that last week as well. What was I trying to say?
I don't know.
Simultaneously. That's what I was trying to say. Apparently I have a problem with ly adverbs beginning with S. I think I said surreptitiously instead of surprisingly last week.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
Where are we?
What a twist.
Ben, do they, spoil it for me, Ben, do they break the loop?
Yes, but not in the way you would expect. You want full spoilers?
Go on, yeah.
Yeah, they break the loop, but they end up in two individual timelines.
Oh, separate.
One where they don't know each other, but they still exist in the same point right before their counterpart dies.
Right.
So Natasha Lyonne has to save the male character from committing suicide.
Okay.
And the male character has to save Natasha Lyonne from being hit by the car.
That's a nice little twist.
And what's more interesting is he has to convince her that he knows her, whereas she simply has to follow him around the city because he's super drunk. So it's two unique challenges with the same end result, if that makes sense.
It's a nice little twist.
Very, very good. So we have multiple timelines, multiverses, things like that.
It goes a bit sliding doors.
Absolutely. And then what's even better is both characters have to be consistent and still look after that other person because neither of them are aware of the...
But they die in the timeline where they save the other one.
Yeah, the one... No. Everybody lives, but they don't recognize each other in their two separate timelines.
Okay.
So it very interestingly, towards episode 7, 8, 9 of the series, it becomes very horror-like because we find out more about Natasha Lyonne's character's background, and we find out that her mother was insane, clinically insane, and she really struggled with that because she was raised by her mother in this very toxic,
maybe she's just insane as well,
unstable environment. So we have a lot of unreliable narrator things, stuff like that coming through. What makes it more interesting is that it starts to manifest in a more horror tone towards those episodes.
Ooh.
So Natasha Lyonne's character's inner child,
Natty L.
Natty L, yeah. I'm not sure what her name is. Her name is something Russian.
That is true.
In a similar way to Natasha, because it's bull something. The reason it's called, what I really enjoyed about Michael was the philosophical undertones and the very metaphysical nature of it. Yeah, for me, anyway, that's very often true. The reason it's called Russian Doll is because, unlike a lot of time loop movies, this one has consequences. There's a compounding of time in each timeline that they go through, and things alters. Things start to disappear from each timeline. So there is a deterioration. For example, the more the episodes progress, the more the fruit in each timeline is rotten. But if you cut the fruit open, it's perfectly healthy on the inside, and it's only the outer shell. That's right. So like what you have is, the more you go inside, the less you have, and the Russian doll goes inside and inside and inside. So they're actually eating their way to the center of the Russian doll, if that makes sense, through timelines. If they don't manage to pull off if they don't manage to break the loop by the final timeline, they die permanently. That's so there is a twist. I spoiled it for you because we did full spoilers, but metaphysically speaking, fascinating concept as they go through. And it's interesting because all the characters that know her begin to mourn for her in each timeline. So they're going through the psychological trauma
of her being dead.
So for example, in one character, her mother figure, the one who looked after her mother was gone, kills her thinking she's a burglar in her house. So that's the end of one timeline. In the next timeline, she bursts into tears the first time she sees her in the continuum because she's still suffering from the trauma of the previous timeline. So there are interesting consequences that go, and it makes it very uncomfortable to watch, especially towards episode 8, 9.
I found it uncomfortable to watch because I hated everyone.
Yes, well, they are insufferable characters. I can't really save the New York narrative. It's very, and loath though I am to reference him on the podcast, it's very Woody Allen.
Oh, no.
In the elitist art scene in New York kind of thing, and everybody's very witty and charming, and everybody loves everybody even though they're complete and utter assholes.
Son of a bitch.
Very common to hear, and if any of our viewers don't like this word, I'm very sorry, but very often you hear the female characters refer to each other as such a cunt, and I love you for it.
Oh, very good.
So it's just reinforcing that thing of, all my friends are assholes, but they're brilliant.
Benjamin.
It's very difficult to watch.
Now, Benjamin, if I know my timelines, you're about to explain to us how this all comes from Groundhog Day.
Yeah, because we've
and
done
then
this before.
I'm about to interrupt you and tell you that that's not true. So would you like to get that rolling there?
Yeah, just give me a second to prepare myself mentally for the beating I'm
on,
about to take. So we decided to do an old day loop breakdown, Michael, and I would start with probably the most popular in terms of pop culture relevance for an old time loop. I got you, you son of a bitch. You've made me more careful with my words, Michael. It's a tragedy. I used to just blunder into things and swing around wildly, but now I have to be careful. And we're going to start with Bill Murray and Harold Ramis's Groundhog Day.
Well, I'm going to stop you there, Ben.
Go ahead.
Because I watched a thing, Ben, many years ago.
Go on out of it.
Have you ever heard of 1201?
I think we both know that I haven't.
1201, Ben, was a short TV movie starring the legendary Kurtwood Smith.
Don't know.
You do. He's Eric's dad from...
I do know.
You do know him?
Yeah.
He was also in the time loop episode of Star Trek Voyager.
To finish that thought for Mick there, it's Eric's dad from that 70s show.
Oh, yeah, did I not finish that? Yes, and in that, Ben, he plays a businessman who's living the same hour over and over again.
Oh.
Just an hour.
Oh, that's not good.
And Ben, that's from television from 1990.
Oh, okay. So this concept...
3 years before...
I did say the most popular.
No, I know. That's why you're safe. That's why you're safe. That's why
safe today. So probably one of the early instances would be this 1201 of which you speak.
One of the interesting things about that, Ben, is it is a purely science fictional concept in that. He's stuck in what's in that called a time bounce.
Okay.
And the kind of key to it, and the key to all of these really, is that a scientist has a theory that consciousness is the only thing which exists outside of time and space.
So it can get stuck.
So consciousness can survive from loop to loop. So time is stuck in a loop, but only Kurtwood Smith's consciousness
can move forward.
And the real... I loathe to call it a twist, Ben, because it's one of the earliest.
Go on.
But the point of this one is that there is no escape.
Oh.
Love won't save the day, or
dark.
Achieving some sort of metaphysical oneness, or
an anti-humanist triumph of the film,
or even like some of them where a lot of them revolve around solving a mystery, or achieving a romantic goal,
fixing a wrong,
or the science fiction ones involve a machine, or a
MacGuffin,
or some sort of explosion or something. But this one it's a thing that's happened. And you're not getting out of it.
You're done.
Sorry about you. And it's the most existentially terrifying of them.
Yeah, well, that's really the tact we were going to take today, I think, is looking at the implications. There are so many different ways of doing this.
And Ben, it's from 1990, and it looks like it was filmed on a potato.
Oh, really? It's a bit rough around the edges.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that probably brings us to the... Ooh.
Yeah, go to Groundhog Day.
That probably brings us to the rules of things like this. I suppose Groundhog Day, again, would be the most popular one and the one that people are most familiar with throughout, unless you're a hardcore 1201 fan and Kurtwood Smith.
Well, Ben, I'm going to interrupt you
acolyte.
again.
Go on.
If you were a fan of Star Trek The Next Generation, you obviously weren't, judging by your face and scornful expression. Ben, Star Trek The Next Generation in 1992 had an episode called Cause and Effect, written by Brannon Braga and directed by one Jonathan Frakes, who we're going to meet at the weekend.
Oh, are we?
Yeah, Commander Riker. He's coming to
no way.
We're meeting
spinny chair guy.
Yes, spinny chair guy. Standing up with a leg on a console guy.
Excellent.
He directed
forward to that, man.
And Benjamin, in that, it also predates Groundhog Day. When's Groundhog Day? 93?
1993.
Yeah. So this was 92. And they wanted to do an unusual time travel episode.
Yes.
And it's nearly a Groundhog Day episode.
Beat for beat.
No, because it predates Groundhog Day.
Yes, okay. So Groundhog Day is nearly a Star Trek movie.
But it's the rules are a little bit different, which is why I'm interrupting you before
That's
we get into the main body.
Because
in this, Ben, no one's particular consciousness survives the loops.
Okay.
Everyone has a faint hint of deja vu.
Oh.
And right?
Okay.
So there isn't a
there's not an agent, or not a...
It is a Dr. Crusher episode, with the lovely red hair. Ugh. Very 90s. It focuses around her, and we see it from her perspective. But everyone, in classic Star Trek fashion, Ben, a ship full of geniuses.
Yeah, they're all.
They figure it out.
It's the 31st. Which century is it set in?
The 2400s, so the 25th century.
25th century. Yeah, so they're all higher evolved beings.
No, they're not. They're just normal people. But they're. I mean, it's the flagship of the Starfleet, Ben. It's the ship full of geniuses and paragons and Wesley. Crusher.
They're all on the Wesley Crusher.
Poor Wesley. They've got all the best people. Like it's the Donald Trump.
It's the Donald Trump.
I've got all the best people.
Space Force.
But anyway, Ben, what am I saying? Yes, so they use science because this is a science incident.
We love science.
And they send a message. They figure out how to send a message forward through the loops, a subconscious message. This one is really good. It's one of the best time loops because back then, time loops were so new.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was a new trope.
They played it as a mystery. And it is probably the most fun, mysterious episode of the originals of the Next Generation of Star Trek.
That's pretty good.
It's a really good mystery. But it still has some of the tropes, which is how I pronounce tropes now.
I can see that.
It has some of the tropes of a classic time loop. There's an introductory scene which is needlessly complex.
Specific, yeah.
There's lots of specific detail. And then the dog barks, and then they bump into the man.
Very important.
They're playing cards.
Yeah.
And they...
I remember this episode. I remember specifically the card scene because one of the characters stops them and starts to predict the cards around the table. I remember watching that when I was very young.
It's very good. So did I, Ben. It came out in 1992.
It was but it was a rerun on Sky 1 or something like that.
How old were you in 1992, Ben?
I was 1 year old. Yeah. 1 year old. 1 year old.
But it's brilliant. It's a really good episode. And when they break the loop at the end, spoilers, it's not a metaphysical thing in this. It's a physical thing that's happened. They break the loop by avoiding a crash with a spaceship. And there's one of the best cameos in Star Trek history of the captain of the other ship. And I told my good lady friend, this is one of the best not to spoil it, but this is one of the best cameos in Star Trek history. And she said, who is it? Danny DeVito?
Nice.
Not Danny DeVito.
No, his
Daniel
evil twin,
Day-Lewis.
Yeah, no, I know.
Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
That's not his name, Ben.
But that's the half son of that's the mixed son of Danny DeVito and
Daniel Day-Lewis.
They had a child.
He famously went full method when he was playing the Penguin.
And played a woman.
Lived in the sewers. Anyway, you were saying.
Sorry. So Groundhog Day, in a very similar fashion, I suppose, came and I suppose what the big difference between what you just described as a Star Trek episode and Groundhog Day is played squarely as a comedy, romantic comedy, if you really want to push the genre. But we remove some very key things. There is no real existential angst in this film. There are occasionally existential questions that Bill Murray asks himself. For example, I'm God. This is one of his famous ones where he says, I am God. I'm not a God.
Well, I'm going to stop you there, Ben, because Kurtwood Smith says that in 1201.
There you go. So it could be stolen. What I would say is there is existential horror from the description you've given of Kurtwood Smith's one. That's brushed over. Bill Murray eventually surrenders. We did, yeah. It was a nice, lovely little hand touch there. That was just me calming you down because you thought I was belittling Kurtwood Smith.
I love Kurtwood Smith.
Daniel DeVito. Any kind of psychological trauma that we would have seen in Russian Doll, any kind of existential horror that we would have seen in 1201, any kind of draining of, it doesn't wear out Bill Murray's psyche in Groundhog Day.
No, despite the fact he's there for up to 10,000 years, according to some internet sites.
I think the very conservative estimate is 40 years.
Yeah, but some people say
if you were 10,000. Some people say that, but surely he would have gone mad. But look, it doesn't really matter.
It's not real, Ben.
It's not real. You can guess this all you want. I did spend the day researching that, and I was like, that doesn't make for a very good podcast. That's not interesting. Also, that content already exists. But they opt away from existential terror.
Yeah.
In Groundhog Day, but that doesn't mean
a bit of a romp.
Yeah, and then the time loop the format was probably firmly established at that point, and then we start to see new adaptations of it. And I've broken it into 3 categories.
Well, hold on, then I'm gonna stop you again because what is that a cat?
This is my 800th time trying to do this episode of Michael, and he never lets me finish.
I don't know what you're talking about, Ben.
Never.
I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best music videos of all time. Ben, what Groundhog Day did do is introduce the format. The very specific things happen, and then we know he's going to solve those problems as he goes through. But then it introduced the format of there's you wake up on the first day and you're confused. On the second day, you're starting to figure it out. Then the comedy starts where you realize you can't die or you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Then they make an effort to try and solve it, become exasperated by that, and then accept it. And that's when they achieve their goal.
It's very like the 7 stages of grief.
Is it?
Using time loopy stuff.
And that, I think, is what Groundhog Day brought to the genre.
It made a copyable, a duplicatable format, and that's what we get. You can break them into 3 different categories, I suppose. If you go off that, I gave it a little bit of thought. You have your parodies of it, so TV shows generally parody Groundhog Day. A good example of that would be the Supernatural episode that you directed me towards.
It's called Mystery Spot.
Yeah, episode 11, season 3.
Yeah,
Mystery Spot. Bloody Sam Winchester has to watch his brother get absolutely destroyed every day.
The thing about that one,
yes,
what makes that one different, because you have to have a twist.
Sure.
You have to have your twist on it.
Sure.
And the twist on that one is that it's a malevolent entity that's causing it.
Which is very rare in time loop narratives.
Yes.
It very rarely has a source point. It very rarely has, especially a sentient source point that's doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
As I was saying earlier, Russian Doll toys with that for one episode where she thinks there's a malevolent force that's targeting people. Mm-hmm. But there isn't. However long Natasha Lyonne survives, she survives until she dies and then restarts the loop from where she was. So if she lives for a week after the event, that's fine, but she will die eventually. She'll just mess it up and she'll die and she'll go right back. So she could theoretically live her entire life,
die and then go back to that
loop.
No.
But it depends on.
That's great.
Yeah, it's interesting. But that's not the case in Supernatural. Mm-hmm. He must die.
He dies that day.
Yeah, there's one hilarious scene where they drop a piano on his head, I think.
Gets squashed.
Yeah, and then Sam tries various things. He tries to not let them leave the motel room, etc., etc. And he then shocks himself when he's shaving or slips in the shower. Or there's one episode where Sam accidentally kills him with an axe because they're arguing over who gets the axe.
My favourite moment in that whole episode is the one where they try and stay in to avoid their fate. Yeah. And Dean is eating and he says, "Do these tacos taste funny?" And then it cuts to the next morning. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely exactly. Brilliant. So that's kind of how we know there's a malevolent force in that one, but that makes it quite unique in time loop narratives in that there's a malevolent agent trying to cause this.
And it gives it a different ending as well, because the ending isn't like the others. Ben, one of the things that these time loops allow shows to do is do a very dramatic cold open. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Michael and Benjamin's podcast. Welcome back to the tiny room. I am the Michael of Michael and Benjamin's podcast. And
please stop.
What?
Just stop.
What are we doing? Why?
No.
Do you want to do the theme music?
No más.
No, no más, señor.
Por favor.
What? All right. Okay. What the?
Theme music for the podcast. We don't actually have any theme music.
Son of a bitch. Benjamin, my personal favourite time loop episode is the Stargate one. Have you seen it?
What's that?
It's called Window of Opportunity. The twist in it is that Colonel Jack, it's 2 people stuck in the time loop. Now, this is from the late 90s.
A la Russian
Doll.
Doll.
Early 2000s. Not really, because they know each other from the beginning.
Okay.
And because they're in the military and they know each other very well and they're very close, everyone believes them instantly. There's no messing around. In the first time loop, they convince everyone they're in the time loop.
Is this the female Colonel character and the spectacled man?
No, it's the exact other 2.
Oh, okay.
It's,
Teal'c and
MacGyver.
Teal'c and MacGyver.
What really sells the episode is MacGyver is brilliant. He keeps saying things which don't prove that they're in a time loop.
Okay.
Like he points to Teal'c and says, "Does this look like the face of a crazy man?" And Teal'c just has a blank expression,
usual
makeup, the thing on his forehead. And he says, "Okay, bad example, but it's very good." He gets to kiss Colonel Carter, and just having watched that episode again, Ben, certainly it's a great show, but without saying anything, Richard Dean Anderson, who plays MacGyver and then therefore also plays Colonel Jack O'Neill, he sells his character's not unrequited but kind of forbidden love of the Samantha Carter. He sells that with every line. No, look.
Oh, right.
He never, like, it's never really spoken about, but he just sells it so well.
Does he ever cement that by the end of the series or the end of his run in the series? Or
I don't really remember.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Anyway, yeah, it's a great episode, Ben. It's probably my favourite time loop episode.
Fun Ben fact, completely off topic. Could never watch that show because of the parasitic nature of the bad guys.
The Goa'uld.
Yeah, when they let the thing into the... I hate parasites. I hate any kind of parasite narrative.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it's one of my big no-no
Did you like the movie Slither?
Hate it. I hate any kind of parasitic timeline. Anything that involves a host organism or something just rubs me the wrong way. The only one I can stomach is Venom. Because it's not an insect type creature that goes inside. Yeah, I have a serious
That's good to know.
issue with anything like that. In fact, I used to live in massive fear when I read all about them as a child, that if I went swimming in the wrong ocean or if I peed in a river or something like that, that something would go up and devour me from the inside. Hate parasites.
That's very interesting. That speaks to the era in which we were brought up, I think.
Possibly.
Yeah, I was when I was a kid, and even now, I'm terrified of AIDS.
Oh, there you go. Were parasites a big thing in the early 90s?
It must have been.
Must have been.
Yeah, maybe
anyway,
the malaria parasite.
Just don't like parasites. Anyway, sorry, back to time loops.
Yeah.
So then you have two other types, Michael. So we've been talking mostly about parodies or mild adaptation things. Then you have the philosophy style ones where we use it as philosophical investigation or a fun little what do you call it? Sandbox.
Yeah.
Sandbox to kind of play around with some ideas. Or usually, interestingly, as you said, with Carter and O'Neill, it's to play around with fan service that you don't want to commit to. We do that a lot.
Daniel Jackson actually says in that episode, what's it like living in a time loop and realizing that you can do anything you've ever wanted with no consequences?
Yeah,
and that's what leads to the fun bits of the episode.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see that, and it's usually amnesia or time loop that allows characters to explore kind of stuff that they've always wanted to do, and blah blah blah. Everyone has collective amnesia, and nobody remembers what happened.
What's going on? Even
Umbrella Academy is a good example. Bloody time loop thanks to one character.
That time loop episode is why we started this.
Yes, that was the main reason, but we'll get to that in a second. You have your philosophical things, for example, source code. We talked about that and whether or not it's a real...
Well, it kind of is.
Loop. It is. He has to repeat the same 8 minutes over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
More than one person is aware of what's happening, and what stops it from being a time loop episode for me is it's a choice. But I haven't seen the whole movie, so I wouldn't know.
And it all turns out to not be real anyway.
Oh, does it really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But then it is. It's weird. It's a
okay. It's one of those things. But another good example of that would be Edge of Tomorrow. Incredibly philosophical. Can you change the future based on what you're doing at the time?
Edge of Tomorrow, Ben, is a good film.
It's a great film.
I recently watched it. I'm a big fan of Emily Blunt. Tom Cruise is growing on me. People love seeing Tom Cruise get killed. That's
the problem with Tom Cruise. Not that you love to see him get killed, but he's very good at being a protagonist.
You went a bit Tom Cruise there. One of my favorite things about that movie is it deals with how that ability would work for a hero, essentially.
Yeah.
Because I always thought it would be cool to have a superhero who had that power, but essentially no one would ever know. They would just be a person who always got the best outcome of everything.
And you don't know how much effort they've actually had to put in to get there.
Like, they could have gone through millions of loops to win this battle.
Well, that is what Emily Blunt's character is at the start.
Exactly,
isn't she? She's a poster girl, but nobody realises that she's died like hundreds of times to become that poster character.
Wouldn't it be cool to have a character in mainstream comics or movies who has that? Imagine that could be what Hawkeye is. He's actually not the world's greatest archer. He's just done it so many times. The loop only continues when he gets it right.
When he gets it right.
And that's why he never misses.
Incredible. You would be psychologically damaged, though, by the end of it. You'd just be like...
That's the thing. That's why it's kind of cool. And then if he couldn't beat Thanos, then nobody can. That's kind of the way that Doctor Strange does it, because Doctor Strange uses time loops as a weapon.
Yeah, there's a new theory that he spent eons in the time loop that he had to bargain with Dormammu for, because he only had, 15 seconds before Dormammu killed him, normally? Yeah. I've come to bargain, squash.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating thought. And that's where he learned all his mysticism, and it's why he's so powerful in the next one, and blah, blah, blah. There are all kinds of theories to fill those gaps. And then the other ones that we have, Michael, is, of course, adaptation. And that's where we take the beats from that classic formula from Groundhog Day and we adapt it to different genres. So probably the best example of that in recent memory would be Happy Death Day.
Ben, I quite enjoyed that.
Yes, very good film. Watched it over the weekend.
My lovely lady loved it too.
Yeah, it's very good. It keeps some of the comedic beats of a Groundhog Day. For example, the day where she's had enough and she goes out buck naked.
Yeah.
The days where she's had enough and then she has her perfect day, like Bill Murray's character.
And that doesn't save the day.
I quite enjoy when they have the perfect day and they have it taken away from them. I think it happens to Bill Murray's character as well, where he falls asleep with her in the bedroom.
He ruins the
And he ruins it by doing something very, very small that otherwise would have been a perfect day. But it's interesting to watch those episodes because I always feel how frustrating that must be for the character when they really nailed it and yet the loop restarted anyway. That has to be the worst part where you're just like, no, I can't do it anymore.
It's interesting that you've broken them down that way. The way I was breaking them down is based on what's the twist that makes it different from Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
In Happy Death Day, the twist is not unlike Russian Doll, now that you've mentioned it, that her injuries carry over.
Yeah, she started to compound damage.
She doesn't have infinite time.
Yeah.
She is going to gradually die.
There's a process of deterioration.
In the Stargate one, the twist was that there were two of them. In the Star Trek one, the twist was that no one was fully aware. It was all
and everyone
deja vu.
Was suffering mild trauma.
Although now the Star Trek one was before
Groundhog Day.
In the X-Files episode, Monday, the twist is it's not happening to the main characters. It's happening to a side character who's trying to tell Mulder and Scully.
Oh, what's happening?
Yeah.
So they're the person. Okay, that's interesting.
And she eventually actually says to Mulder, "We're all in hell. I'm just the only one who knows it."
Oh, that's interesting.
And she eventually convinces Mulder what's happening, and he's able to tell himself in the next cycle and break it.
Oh, that's interesting.
But to break the cycle, she has to die.
The
woman who's going through the cycle.
Yeah, okay.
And she says this has never happened before, and that appears to be the end of the cycle.
Oh, interesting.
And they all have a little different wrinkle on it. They have to have a little wrinkle.
Well, you can't just repeat Groundhog Day. That's not cool.
Very good.
But there are a couple of rules that you see repeated that kind of make it a classic Groundhog Day thing. One of the examples there would be usually it's one character, as you said, that bears witness to this constantly. It's very often non-linear, so the character can travel backwards and forwards in time depending on which part of the loop. In some time travel narratives, yeah, exactly. It has to be a loop. They can go backwards or forwards depending on what part they die in. And you understand? No. Okay, it's do-over time travel. Actual time travel only works forwards in most modern narratives on time travel, where they say you can't go back. A good example would be number 4 from Umbrella Academy. Not number 4, number 5? Number 5 from Umbrella Academy. It takes him years to figure out how to go backwards, and he doesn't actually figure out how to do it. He's given a special box that allows him to do it himself, and he figures it out.
But then everyone can time travel backwards anyway. That kind of shoots itself in the foot.
Yeah, I know. But it's just interesting as it goes along that you see those different things. Very often, it's non-intentional. I think that's what makes classic loops for me, is that there's no particular reason it's happening. That's what I enjoy.
That's
I don't always look for, or I don't always care why it's happening.
In the Star Trek, the Stargate episode, Ben, it's a guy operating a machine who is trying to use the time of the loop to figure out how to time travel back in time to see his wife.
Oh.
And the way they break the loop in that, it's not a metaphysical vague thing that has to be achieved for some reason. They just have to convince him to turn the machine off.
Okay, fair enough.
They end the situation with a chat.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that in when you come back to MacGuffins and what causes it. That's how Happy Death Day 2U, the sequel to Happy Death Day. That's
Which I haven't seen, Ben.
That's okay. Well, mild spoilers.
Mild spoilers.
There's a mysterious reason the loop is happening in the first Happy Death Day, and it's never actually discovered why the loop is.
One of the metaphysical ones. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the metaphysical ones. In Happy Death Day 2, spoilers for a movie that's out currently. It's a MacGuffin. There's a group of researchers at a different part of the campus, and they've developed a machine, and the machine explodes at the time that the loop starts for
classic.
her. And I'm not 100% sure. It didn't actually explain why she's the chosen one.
Like Kurtwood Smith.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mistake, or a little bit of a hanging thread, I suppose. Not a mistake, but a hanging thread. And that's what it is. It's a MacGuffin, and they've set themselves up for Happy Death Day 3U.
Oh, very good.
Because the government gets involved at the end of Happy Death Day 2U. Those sons of bitches. So yeah, I mean, it's
Star Trek Discovery did one.
Did they? They
Star
did.
Trek Discovery
with that very
was,
attractive lady. Just obsessed with physical appearances.
You are. It's weird. What's her name? Her name's Michael in the show, which freaks me out.
Which is so racist. We never remember the names of the characters who are a different colour.
Just the actors.
Yeah.
Alexandra Shipp played Storm. Also, you can't tell Bryce Dallas Howard and Jessica Chastain apart.
Yeah, really, just can't tell women apart.
It seems to be women, Ben.
If you or anyone you know has been affected by my lack of recognition of female individual characteristics, right into the podcast.
Anyway, in Discovery, it's Malevolent Force again. It's Harry Mudd. And
Harry Mudd.
Yeah,
that's a great name.
And it's two people. Okay. So that's the twist. It's also not very pleasant.
Oh, really? It's an unpleasant episode.
It's slightly unpleasant, yeah.
I think that's one of the things that really stood out to me in terms of Russian Doll. It's just how...
Is her name Green? Is Green her last name? I'm going to look her up while you talk about Russian Doll.
One of the things that was very harrowing is to watch that compounded damage start to affect people psychologically. It becomes very eerie. One of the things that Russian Doll does very well is creating that eerie atmosphere that something is very, very wrong in the final few episodes. Like, it doesn't change anything massively. There's no quickening of pace, but surely through set design and the amount of people in New York...
Martin Green.
and the amount of people in New York City, you get this very eerie feeling because slowly the amount of people in each set or scene reduce, or the amount of objects in a room reduce. So when we begin the episode, it's a full swinging New York party in an artist loft. Yeah. By the end, it's her and her best friend in an empty apartment, and her friend is behaving as if they're in the middle of a great party. She's dancing in the middle of the dance floor, but there's nobody else in the apartment.
Brilliant, Ben.
And
You've ruined that now. I'd like to watch
all the furniture. No, because I haven't ruined it at all, because it's still very odd to watch. But anyway, what is your favourite time loop?
I think either Star Trek Cause and Effect or Window of Opportunity. Oh, you're not talking to me.
No, I wasn't talking to you.
Talking to
the listeners. Talking to the listeners. Do you enjoy time loops? Do you find them endlessly frustrating? Do you think they're a hack convention that people shouldn't use in TV series?
Did you enjoy how I did it to Ben?
Times? Did you enjoy me going through the same loop? What do you mean did it to me? I'm still going through it. This is time 800-652.
Ben, I think we should point out, just for the listeners, that you didn't know that I was going to do that.
No, the second time when I got really annoyed at you, where I was like, "Why did you?" We did have a technical issue at one point, and I stopped mine. I was like, "Why did you start the episode over again?" And Mick committed to the bit and just went, "Don't know what you're talking about." So he tried to gaslight me, and it wasn't fun. We are going to be at Dublin Comic Con this weekend. Come and say hello to us.
I am, despite appearances, the more approachable of the two. Ben is a bit skittish.
That's a complete lie.
Ben might skitter off if you shock him.
That's a complete lie. A complete lie. If you are a female listener who's come up to me before, I might not recognise you, because apparently that's one of my big problems lately.
Women face blindness.
Woman face blindness. But not generally skittish. So look, come up, have a chat with us, tell us what you think. If you like any other time travel tropes that you've seen, for example, trying to get back to the past, back to the future, classic things like that, let us know.
Ben, I wonder if maybe the listeners would know this, is there enough material to do a similar episode on the sliding doors type of time travel episode?
Timelines.
Multiple splitting, branching timelines episode.
I love that stuff. That is existential horror at its finest.
We might do that.
Yeah, let's do that. This is great little, okay.
But next week, Ben, we have a special guest.
Who do we have?
Rachel.
Oh, we have bloody the glamorous lady of podcasting.
The original Glop.
The original Glop. OG Glop.
Yeah, we're talking about wrestling.
Old Glop.
So if you have any favourite wrestlers who have made the transition across to genre movies and TV shows, let us know. Because that's what we'll be talking about next week.
And we're going to be at DC Comic Con next weekend. So if you see me or Michael, I'm just kidding. There's no more loops. We're done. We're done. That's it for us.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Hello.